So, Stuart, I've caught you on deadline day as well. Has it been a quiet or a busy one for you so far?
It's been fairly quiet, if I'm being honest. Not a lot we do. We always find the January window a difficult window. We're still, I guess, what been you allowed loan players until the end of February, so we'll probably be using that more than anything else, and looking to bring in possibly one or two on loan over the coming weeks, if possible.
Well, of course, your official title these days is the SPFL's second longest serving manager. Big news that came out today, though, was the most recent man to get the axe was Barry Robson. And you're at the opposite end of the spectrum if you look at it for that sense. See, the longer it goes on, do you feel safer the longer you're in a job, or do you still just take it game by game, season by season, because you never know?
If I'm being brutally honest, I'll take it game by game. I think it's a privilege to get one of the manager's roles. I don't know what there is there 20, 25 or 26, 27 full-time clubs? So if you do the maths, that doesn't leave that many part-time clubs. So to have one of the jobs is I feel myself very fortunate. There'll be better managers out me that don't have a job. There's no doubt about that. So to work with the people that I work with, Montrose, from John and the rest of the directors to the staff and everybody behind the scenes, it's a privilege to be part of it.
Have you felt in that you've had a consistent plan that's went on over the last 7 or so years, or has it been constant adaptation as you have seemed to have gotten better every season, really?
I think the plan was initially to come and stabilise the club in league football, because ultimately when we took over, we were bottom of the league, which is quite a daunting thing. Once you get the job, you're like, oh, bottom of the league. If you don't improve, then there's only one outcome. You're back in the playoffs, and Paul did great to steer them through the playoff the season before to keep their league status. So that was always the initial short-term goal, was to stabilise the club and then get us into the first division, which we've done probably quicker than we thought we would within the first year and a half. And then the ultimate goal is, can we get to the championship? Can we become the best team in Angus? Well, obviously, when you look at what Arbroath have done down the road, it's unbelievable how well they've done. And you walk in the place now, they've transformed it. We've been in the championship, so fair play to the gaffer when he was there and what he's achieved as manager at Arbroath. There's no question of that, and the club are in a very, very strong position. There's no question of that. So that's something that we're looking at, if we can get on the coattails of Arbroath, and if we can somehow get to some success of what they've had, that would be definite success for us. But yeah, ultimately, if we're a rock steady first division club, that's great. If we're pushing toward the top end of the table, great. But my main aim, as soon as the first ball of the season kick, is finish 8th and keep our League One status, because you can see if you do go down, clubs are coming in, they're now hungry, coming into league football, wanting to push through the leagues. They've got financial backers as well that's doing that, and you just have to look at our neighbours Brechin, who have unfortunately fell the other end of it and are fighting hard to try and get back in league football. But if you see on recent times, all the ones that have been relegated haven't come back out yet. So it gets tougher and tougher each year. So we're certainly no silly in the fact that League One status is still massive, and that's certainly we're outset at the start of each season. This year there's 4 full-time clubs, so again 40% of the teams you're playing against are full-time. So if you look at the maths of that, you would say that if you finish 5th, you've kind of won the league to an extent, because in theory the full-time club should finish above you. So if we could compete with them and give them a fright onward day, then that's good enough. And if we can push in towards these playoff places, great. But we're also mindful that you want to stay away from the bottom 2 slots as well, which is getting tougher year on year. Obviously, Edinburgh have had their issues this year, but when you look at Annan just now, who are in 9th, are competitive in every game Peter plays in, and it's always a tough journey when you go down there to play them.
You speak there about the full-time clubs, and we are still just about in the transfer window. What for you then has been some of the maybe the things that we overlook, because these full-time clubs have got the lure of the players. I mean, you've got Hamilton and Falkirk, those are clubs that are going to attract guys who maybe can play above that level. They've got the finance, they've got the stadiums. But what may be some of the challenges that are overlooked when it comes to bringing guys into this level?
Sometimes it's difficult and it's hard to maybe get players to make that transition from full-time to part-time, because it's a big decision. You go from training a couple of hours a day, being a full-time footballer, to you have to go and get a job, and then you're training 2 nights a week. So you go from having quite a spare bit of time, I guess. You're home in the afternoons. You're not out at nights unless there's a game or maybe a reserve game, and then all of a sudden you get thrust into part-time. So a lot of the guys will probably want to stay full-time as long as they can. Within that, I guess from our point of view, yeah, we're competitive. We pride ourselves on our training facility and how we train and how people are treated at the club when they come through the door. We try and make sure we're as professional as we can be with the resources that we have. But ultimately, sometimes you're just not going to compete, Charlie, with other clubs financially. And sometimes if people are going to drop down, it might come down to how much you can actually give them. Ideally, I want to give them as much as I can, but it doesn't often work like that. You've got to balance the books and look after the football club as well. So, yeah, that's some of the challenges. And I guess from a perspective of where we sit geographically, we've been home games at Montrose, trying to maybe get guys come from the West Coast. It's a fair journey for them for 18 home games a season and all the cup games. So we'll have switched for training since I came in to Perth. So we're centrally to Dundee. We were in Perth, but we just felt that we got a chance training at the RPC in Dundee, and the facility's fantastic with it. And we'll have the strength and conditioning as well on the Tuesday and Thursday. So we'll have the performance suite, which is second to none facility-wise. So we'll have moved that to Dundee, and again, that brings its own challenges. If you want to bring people from the West Coast in, they're having to travel maybe an hour and a half to training. They're bypassing maybe 10, 15 part-time clubs to get to your training. So it's difficult within that to do that. So it certainly brings its challenges, but one that we're certainly up for. Once people see how we train, what the facilities are like, how they're looked after as players, how they're looked after at the football club, then if we can make it happen, we'll do everything we can.
Aye. Well, we'll go back then to talking about Angus and competing in that sort of market. I feel like you're from Dundee, played for Forfar. What was your football upbringing, and really what was that timeline of you going from into professional football, and then maybe more importantly, what side of Tannadice Street were you most normally at?
I wasn't at any of the side of as a supporter. I guess I went from boys' club football. I signed signing with Dundee United at a young age of 11, which weren't allowed to sign till you were 13 in them days, but we just signed in pencil. And then you re-signed it in pen when you were 13. And then there was an sign at Dundee United, played boys' club from 11 right through to 15. And then at 15 got released from Dundee United as felt I wasn't good enough at that stage, which was obviously it's hard to take, and I kind of fell away from the game, if I'm being honest, for about a year. I took a bit of time away from it. Just started playing with my mates in a local sports centre on a Sunday afternoon for basically a whole year. And then I went and played locally for an amateur team in the village I come from. And was there for a whole season, then got picked up by Forfar. And then went into Forfar, where they farmed me out to junior clubs, which was great. You played Monday night reserve football, and you went out to a junior club, went out to a club called East Craigie, which was fabulous for my development as a player going into adult football, playing against ex-seniors who were now centre-halves in the juniors. So they certainly let you know you were in a game when you played striker. Would kick you all over the pitch, which was great for me developing as a player and toughening up. And then I did that 2 seasons, and then at the Forfar's first team for next 3 years basically, and then fortunate enough got an offer to go to Dunfermline, and turning point for him. Obviously, you go through and then you realise how big a club Dunfermline is when you walk in the door, and it took a fair bit of time trying to adjust to being a full-time football player, and that's all you did. And people paid good money to see you on a Saturday to perform. So it was certainly an eye opener to how big the jump was, and certainly took a fair bit of time to settle into that. But by the time the second season came round in pre-season, it felt more like a player that was a full-time player and felt part of it, and then spent the best part of my career there for the next 10 years.
When you were at Forfar, then it was a club that had a wee bit of prosperity. Maybe just before you had signed, they went on a wee cup run. They just finished short of promotion as well, I'm sure. What for you then with the highs and the lows? I'll assume maybe the low was getting relegated. But talk me through a wee bit more of this Forfar stint. I'm quite interested in the jump in before you went to Dunfermline.
Forfar was great. I think it was actually Henry Hall that signed me. Not that it was signed with the prospect of going straight in the first unit, who were farmed out. And then Henry left and Bobby Glennie took over. And then Bobby left and Paul Hegarty took over. So it was quite ironic that when it was an S sign at Dundee United, Paul used to pick me up from the Montrose High School that I went to and took me to training because he took the training. And then he was the manager when he gave me my debut for Forfar. So it was great. I think it was Wraith Rovers in a cup game, like a League Cup or whatever it was called at them days, many moons ago. And fabulous times. Played Celtic in the Scottish Cup. It was absolutely rammed the place, which was probably a highlight for my Forfar days. And then Paul did really well. We did well in the old First Division. I think it was only 3 leagues at the time, but we did well. We stayed up, and then we did get relegated, and Tommy Campbell took over. And then I had a really good spell with Tommy, scoring goals, playing up front with them, and a successful Forfar team. I think at that time it was, you had a lot of the part-time clubs just like a conveyor belt, I guess, talented players moving to full-time clubs. There was myself, Scott Thompson, the goalkeeper, went to Wraith. Craig Brewster went to Wraith. David Bingham went to St Johnstone, I think. Bingy went to Alan Morgan, was at the club not long after me. Alan went to St Johnstone. So they had that continual where they were selling players. Just before my time, Ian McPhee that went to likes of Airdrie, and they were selling players, and obviously that was great financially for the club. But obviously that seems to have dried up quite a bit now. But great place. Still very fond memories of Forfar, and did go back and do a little bit of coaching under the gaffer there for a year and a half, which was great to go back. And they've got a lot of good people at the club, there's no doubt about that. But ultimately, getting relegated, it's if you play long enough, you're going to get relegated, I think, unless you get really lucky. I've been very fortunate at the other end of the spectrum as well. So, no, I only look back with fondness to my times at Forfar.
Why Dunfermline then? Because you say that was your transition into full-time football, and was there anybody else that was in for you but what stood out about Dunfermline for you then?
It was I'd actually been down at Middlesbrough on the trial the week before. We played the first game of the season at Queen's Park. We played Middlesbrough pre-season and done well, so they'd said, look, we'd like to get you down for a trial. Lenny Lawrence was the manager in them days, and we decided we'll go down, but they decided to come and watch me one more time. Well, first game of the season was Queen's Park away, and I scored a hat-trick, and they were at the game. So I went down there to trial on the Monday, so got the train journey down Monday, went into train on the Tuesday. First team were off, so didn't train with them. Then Wednesday, we didn't train. Thursday was off to play a game at night, and then when I went in to play the game at night, my registration, they didn't have time to get the paperwork through. There was a delay in the paperwork that I wasn't able to play. And then on the Friday, I was just back on the train up the road, so it was a bit of a waste of time when I went down. and then came back up. They watched me on the Saturday again. We actually played Arbroath, ironically, and I was terrible. So I think they said, well, we'll just keep an eye on you. So that was that one. And then the same week, Hamilton and Dunfermline came in. Ian Montrose spoke to me. He was manager at Hamilton at the time. And then Dunfermline came in as well. And I went and met Bert and Dick, and I just felt that was the right one for me. A little bit closer to home as well. Able to travel, I guess, on a daily basis rather than maybe thinking about moving to Hamilton. But I just felt that was the right one for me to go and try my luck at Dunfermline. And fortunately enough, it all worked out in the end for me.
Aye, well, working alongside then Bert Payton, a guy that has become very associated with Dunfermline. He's probably done about every job in the book there. Is it any easier than working with a guy who's so well associated with a club?
I think it helps because ultimately, as managers and coaches, you want to do well, of course you do. But I think when you have a close affiliation with a club like Bert did, Bert was part of when Dunfermline were on the right good side and having European runs and then finals of cups regular. So that's when they were at their pinnacle, I guess. So to work under him and as a striker helped as well because obviously he was there to give you just a little bit. He wasn't a huge coach. It was Dick that did most of the coaching. But when Bert did, you listened and he gave you plenty of good tips and coaching to have been a better striker. Simple as that. And a great man. The two of them were. And it was a privilege to play under him and to manage to get us into the Premier League and play under him in the Premier League was a journey in itself. But it was great to be part of that. But as I say, once you walk in the door there, you realise the size of the football club, and I probably didn't realise that when I was leaving Forfar, because it agreed to sign in a petrol station basically at Kinross on the way to Dunfermline. That's where we met. So I wasn't even through at the ground, and I went through on the Friday after the agreed terms. And not that there was much negotiation in agreeing the terms. I got told what I was getting, and that was it. And then I was through there on the Friday for the medical.
That puts Messi in his napkin contract to shame. I think that one, a petrol station contract.
Petrol station at Kinross. Here you go. The service. We'll call it a service station because at least there's a shop and a cafe in it. But yeah, sat in there and basically got told, "Here's what you're getting, son," and that was it. There wasn't much negotiation. Put it that way in them days.
Yeah. Well, Dick Campbell, the gaffer, as you've called him there, he's somebody that you've been in very much admiration of across your career. We all know he's a character, and I think we all had a wee soft spot for Arbroath, especially in that season. Not to mention that my old PE teacher, actually, Scott Stewart, was part of it, but we all supported them like mad that year. What were some of the things, though, that from a player's point of view made Dick Campbell special?
But everything, just about. I would say that from 1:45 to 5 o'clock, he's probably the best there is that I've worked with and worked under. His man management skills are second to none. His motivational skills are second to none. You want to play for him. You simply want to play for him, and he gets the best out of people. And when being in the game the length he's been in, he knows exactly how it all works and how to manage people. From the guys that are getting fortunes to the ones that are at the very bottom of the scale, he'll get the best out of people, and that's what he does on a regular basis. Simply on record, I think he's the best part-time manager there's ever been. That I've no doubt. His longevity within the game and the amount of promotions he'll tell you, and the amount of manager of the months he's got, he keeps going on about them as well. But yeah, just a class act, and as I say, he'll certainly go down in history for me. Is certainly the best part-time manager is, and I've no doubt we've not seen the last of the gaffer. He'll have another go at it. That I've no doubt. But and you learn a lot of that. You learn how to manage people at part-time level because you've only got them 2 nights a week. So you might have, once you do your strength conditioning, Your warm up, you're playing games. Coaching wise, you're limited to how much coaching you can have with them. So it's all about getting as much information, but obviously making the sessions fun as well as getting the fitness out of it. So it's the man management side of things and how you treat people and goes a long way at our levels, no question of that. Because ultimately, all the guys we're all working other jobs as well. So we're in it for the love of the game as much as anything else, and we want to make sure that it's enjoyable as it can be for them.
You were also there as well with Jackie McNamara back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
You were there, of course, he made the club record sale to Celtic. He's become a very familiar face in Scottish football. When you've got guys like him at the club, is it very obvious straight away that he's going on to bigger things, or did Jackie maybe develop into it and then you seen why he moved?
Nah, you'd seen it straight away. Jackie was at the first season I was there, that you could see that he was just a talent, just an absolute talent, the lad. And play anywhere, whether you play him left back, right back, centre mid. It wasn't an issue for him. And he went on to have an unbelievable career. And really happy for him. We've become friends throughout that as well, with himself and his wife, and his pal. Certainly a few good nights out, we'll put it that way. But no, there was a lot of good players come through. I think it was in a bit of a transition period when I arrived at Dunfermline, because it just kind of got over the big hitters who'd been in at the club. Svan Cosmas, Drizic, people like that. Billy Davis was still at the club. Lex Bailey when I first arrived. So there was a few big senior players that were still there, but it was in that transition period. The money was kind of less. Obviously, I didn't see that side of it, but it was going back to, I guess, Bert and Dick just handpicking players that they felt from maybe part-time football. Myself, Mark Miller, Big Andy Todd, Evil Den Beeman, people like that all come in the door. And then he married that with bringing in some other ones as well that Bert had worked with at St John, like Alan Moore, people like that. Ian Boswell came back to the club, so it was great. And obviously, you had Big Norrie to start with as well. But yeah, you could see that Jackie was always going to go. And for him, at the age he was at, sometimes it's maybe more difficult for Jake, because he was obviously following his dad's footsteps, who had a terrific career as well, and that can make it possibly harder as well. But he certainly went there and ended up being Celtic captain, which is just an unbelievable achievement from him.
He was back at the club as a consultant, was he not? That's a very broad term, that, but you scored the goal that essentially put Dunfermline up, did you not? You say it's the highlight of your career?
It's certainly up there. There's no question of that. I guess it was spoiled by getting sent off about 30 minutes later or 40 minutes later in the game, which was maybe the best thing I did, because it seemed to galvanise the team and they made sure they weren't going to concede a goal at that stage. So, there's no doubt we'll turn up at Taddice and everybody's got us beat. The trophy's there waiting on Dundee United lifting it to win the league. So for us and it was all again due to the way Bert and Dick managed us throughout the week, had the team set up perfect to go to Taddice and nick a result, and we did that. And it was there's no doubt that was a big point in my career to do that. Obviously, we're getting sent off. Maybe didn't quite work out the full day, but as I say, maybe once I got sent off, the boys just all got together. As I had that camaraderie and team spirit was incredible, and they certainly weren't going to concede that day.
You ended your Dunfermline career. I'm quite interested in this. I'm big into the American sports, so when I had David Proctor on for the first episode, he went away to Canada and played for Edmonton in the old NASL, and I was a bit big on that because I'm into the NFL and all that, up for the Super Bowl. He went to Australia though, which was, the country was still in its football infancy a wee bit. He's maybe had 3 or 4 sports ahead of it. Talk to me about both the football process and that, still developing, but also as if I'm in your position, if I'm going from Dunfermline to Australia at that point, What are some of the things I would have needed to know personally about that?
It came about. We were in New Zealand the season before with Dunfermline on pre-season tour, and I got to know an agent that was there, and he was helping out. He was an agent / photographer. He was at the games anyway. Kind of become friends with him over the period that we were in New Zealand, and just swap emails. Say, look, if you hear of anything, let me know. I would maybe want to try it at the end of my career. And Ian Ferguson was at a club as well. Ian went out, left Dunfermline the season prior to that, and went out. So again, kept in touch with Ferg as well to say, look, if there's any chance, get me out. But I'm sure there was plenty of people said that to Ferg when he went out, because you're right, it was just kind of up and coming. The A-League hadn't started up; it was just state leagues. And just out of the blue, I got an email. I was going to be leaving probably Dunfermline in the January window anyway. I wasn't playing under Jimmy, which was totally fine. That was Jimmy's opinion, that he felt he had better than what I was, and I had a great career at Dunfermline and under Jimmy, so I had no issues with that at all. So it was just a case of we were going to leave in the January window, and the plan was probably that stage was either go to Ross County or Inverness. Both interested, and was going to speak to both of them. I went away on holiday in the winter break, come back, and then the Australia thing just kind of happened. Within a few days, I was sitting and we were sitting in the house and we were watching Mission Impossible 2, which I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it's based in Sydney, and the place just looks amazing within it. So we're like that. Nah, that's just fate. So we decided to up sticks, myself, wife, and the kids, and go for it. For I guess initially we said, let's just like a busman's holiday. We'll sign 3 months. If we don't like it, we'll come back and move to a club in the summer, because it was just towards the end of the season in the NSL. So went out there and we loved it. I did well, signed a new 2-year contract, and then within a couple of months the league went defunct and it just folded. And they decided at that stage that the A-League was going to come in anyway and I guess merge everything in Australia, whereas we were just in New South Wales. We played in mainly. You did go over and play in Melbourne, but it was mainly New South Wales you played in. So they decided to merge all the whole country. So basically, you would have Australia, New Zealand was in it, but then it would just be teams dotted over. So there wasn't a huge abundance of teams in New South Wales. You had one in Sydney, ourselves in Central Coast, Newcastle, and then it was Brisbane, Melbourne, Adelaide, Perth, New Zealand. So obviously they had to show that they could afford the franchise for it, and so the A-League started up. But that was about 11 months away. So we were in between clubs, I guess, at that stage. So luckily enough, I went over to Singapore and played in Singapore for 4 or 5 months with a club called Geylang United, which was just a fabulous experience to be in Singapore playing. And then we came back and we still had time that went and played some state league football again with teams in Sydney, Blacktown City Demons, and then I played for Wollongong Wolves as well. So again, it was great just to go and play at these places. And then the A-League kicked in, and I spent 2 years with the Central Coast Mariners, and fortunate enough in the first season we reached the grand final as well, which was great for the club. Yeah, a fabulous experience certainly as a player in Australia.
You didn't have a house like Dougray Scott's, did you, in the film?
Unfortunately, I didn't. No. We did have a house with swimming pool, right enough, but it was not like that one, and it wasn't near that the harbour either. We certainly couldn't afford one near down there, that's for sure.
Does that mean you would have overlapped if when Ange was in the A-League?
Yep, he was. I think he was manager at. It was either Brisbane Roar or Gold Coast came into the league. He was a manager at one of the clubs there for a period when I was there.
So
it might have been Brisbane Roar, I think they were called.
Aye. Yeah, I'm quite interested in, was he the standout at that point, or was he just like another manager at that point?
Just like, I guess if you played for him, he would have been, but in our eyes, there because it was all franchised and they all had a wage cap, so the teams were much of a much. Sydney had you were allowed a marquee player, and Dwight York was there, which was brilliant for the league the first season, and he was excellent at promoting the whole thing. But the teams were all much of a much. As I say, we were, I guess, classed as the paupers of the whole place, and managed to make the grand final the first season. But I think if you look at it season on season, it's maybe similar to the NFL a little bit, where it's different teams are winning leagues year on year because of the competitiveness and the salary cap. It's not like it's Celtic Rangers here, obviously, that are going to win the league, or down south it's usually out with maybe Leicester winning the league, but it's usually one of the big 4 or 5 that win down there. But the A-League, you can be finished bottom, then the next year you can win it. So good from that point of view. But yeah, there was a lot of good younger players. There's no doubt about that. But it has kicked on from there. Probably what I would say is when I did go out there, that they were well ahead sports science-wise and strength conditioning to what we were in Scotland. All caught up now, right enough, but certainly at that stage they were well ahead, and I got introduced to sports science and strength conditioning maybe a bit late in my career, but it probably prolonged my career by 2 or 3 years, if I'm being honest.
I think that's interesting because I mind somebody saying about the American leagues and about how all your American soccer players these days, they're all just athletes, they're all just big guys who will play to the other sports and they'll just be big, quick, but they've got no technical ability. So I find that interesting about Australia. How would you then compare, because you were there at the start of the A-League, how would you compare its growth as a football league and Australia as a country?
I think it's certainly grown. I think we started with 8 teams in the A-League. I don't know what's in it now. There'll be 12, 14,
something like
that kind of figure. There's a few clubs there that obviously, as I say, when I was there, it was just Sydney FC was the only team in Sydney. Now I think there'll be 3 or 4 in Sydney area. So it's certainly grown for the right reasons. There's no question of that, and they're producing good players and good managers because they're coming out there. They're coming even over here, and they're doing really well. Was at Central Coast actually. The Hibs manager was at Central Coast, and he's come over, and obviously Ange coming over. Probably highlighted the A-League, and then players coming over from the A-League as well. And obviously the flip of that is players now going over to the A-League and doing well. I think thingy from Dundee went over to Central Coast and did very well. Cummins. So it's certainly grown. I guess for them, whereas maybe in Scotland we've got ourselves in rugby would be the golf to an extent as well, I guess, sport wise, but team sports probably rugby and football. Whereas over there you've got NFL, AFL, NRL. They've got their Super League in the rugby union. They're massive into their cricket. Swimming's still a big thing, albeit maybe countries have caught up on them for a while when they dominated swimming as well. So there's certainly plenty of sports you can play over there. There's no doubt about that. And you're right, when I went over, football certainly wasn't the number one sport. I don't know where it ranks now within them, but certainly there's a lot of people playing it over there. They might even start calling it football over there now. I'm not sure.
Well,
than soccer.
Well, we speak there about Australia being a developing country when it came to football. And you played in Singapore very briefly as well. What was the whole atmosphere like that? Was it quite laid back in the sense that it wasn't just full on football as it is here in Scotland?
Singapore was fabulous. The just friendly atmospheres at the games. It was just guys just want to go and watch. They just love football in Singapore. They love the Premier League in Singapore. If I'm being honest, it's the S League as it was called. I think with 10 teams in it, so it wasn't that well watched. There wasn't thousands and thousands packing in the stadiums. Put it that way. We trained at 8 o'clock in the morning due to humidity, so by 10 o'clock you were almost done because you couldn't train in it. So the rest of the day was to yourself kind of thing. But they were massive into the A-League. into the Premier League in England. We played a semi-final of a cup, and the time got moved to accommodate the Charity Shield, which was getting played the first game of the season, because they're just all just mental where they're at with Arsenal's and Liverpool's and Man U's are just all going about with Premier League tops, and I'm presuming it'll still be the same. They just love their Premier League football. So, but it was a great experience. Again, one of the most friendliest places I've ever been to. You just felt safe walking about anywhere at any time in Singapore. So it was a great experience to have that, and luckily enough to meet some good people over there and play with some good players. Did have the opportunity to possibly play in the Asian Champions League, but we'd have been spending another 3 or 4 months in Singapore, and we decided that we didn't want to do that. We came back to Sydney.
Well, you say there about how it was the two Highland clubs that were in for you after Dunfermline. You'd finished your career at Ross County, and am I then right in saying you were a player-coach type role with that?
Yeah. Again, was getting released from a contract. I wasn't getting a new contract at Central Coast. And the gaffer phones me and says, "Look, do you want to come back to Ross County? Come back and help us win a title." That was his exact words. So I said, "Yeah, let's go." So it was a bit extreme going from Sydney to Dingwall. But yeah, went up there. Obviously, didn't work out for Gaffer. Got relieved of his duties fairly quickly into his tenure up there. But we'd moved up as a family, and kids were in school, so we decided to stay on. We'd bought a house, and at that stage, when the Gaffer took me, I was player coach, and it remained that way until the end of that season. And then I moved into a role as under-19s coach and helped with the first team on a Saturday, before getting the opportunity to go back to Australia. But again, very fortunate within the first season up there, won a title. So again, and to win another championship and get another medal, it's just you feel you're gifted to an extent, and very fortunate that you're part of a team that's won the league. As I say, they don't hand out many of these medals every year, so to be fortunate enough to get another one with Ross County was great. And again, lovely, great club, great people, and a great place to live in Inverness. But we just felt when the time was right was to move. And I might have stayed, but there's no guarantees that you would get a job beyond what we were doing. So ultimately, you need to look after yourself and your family as best you can.
You say then about the job after. You'd go and you'd have a few coaching roles. Were Ian Ferguson's assistant over in Australia for a wee bit? Yeah,
went back. There was a new club came in called North Queensland Fury in the league. They were based up in Townsville, which is up, I guess, close to Cairns. Is probably the one that people would recognise, but big town. And Ian got the manager job, so went out to be his assistant. We both signed 3-year contracts. Decided to buy or build a house out there. But then we didn't realise that the club was just losing money, and it was just it become a bit of a shambles within the club. And then we could see they were in dire trouble financially. Couldn't get backers in to do it. So ultimately what happened was they basically cancelled everybody's contracts that were from overseas, and maybe guys that were on bigger contracts, such as Robbie Fowler, a couple of other guys that Ian had brought in, bigger players, all got their contracts cancelled, and the Australian Football Federation took over the club basically to keep it moving or keep it alive as such. And then we were relieved of our duties. So ultimately, 1 year into a 3-year contract, and then you're just told that's it, and they terminate it without any compensation. So you're, it certainly left a sour taste, that one, within it. And then that's when we decided to come back again to Scotland at that stage.
Was it Robbie Fowler then that told you to build the house out there?
He on the street? No, it was one. I actually was renting a house from a builder whose office was across the road. We were in the rented the show home off him, become friends with him, and then it was just there was a chance for us to, myself and two other players, bought land on the same street from a developer who had a massive development. That we got a deal on the land and we got a deal on the houses, and we thought it would have been great because we would have built the houses cheaper than what other people were building them for. But unfortunately, it didn't materialise, and we never seen the house get finished. We were back in Scotland by the time it was finished, and then we had to try and get it sold at that stage.
Well, you had a few roles in terms of coaching. You were in as caretaker as well for Forfar. What would you say then, before you got the job at Montrose, if we were to take one of those roles out of your timeline, what do you think would have then had the most, the biggest impact on you today as a manager if we just took it out of the equation?
After I come back?
Aye.
I came back.
What was important to your development as a manager then?
I always feel when I was working under Dick, it was always I was always learning. Under Dick, Pink, and John Young, you're learning John Young would just say maybe one thing to you in a week, and you would take it on board. So I was always learning from these. But I think with Paul Sheeran put a bit of faith in me when I came back from Australia and took me in as his assistant at Arbroath. I didn't know Paul, but we hit it off when we met, and then he decided to bring me in as assistant, which is probably really good for my development because you'd gone from, and with Paul still playing, and he was a genius on the pitch, there's no doubt about that he was player manager, so it probably allowed me to do a bit more coaching than normally an assistant manager would do with Paul still playing. So that was certainly a massive learning thing for me, and it gave you an insight into part-time football because I hadn't been part of that since playing at Forfar in the early days. So you got to see how players worked, how they reacted to working, what other, I guess, obstacles stood in the way of part-time players, because it's not just a case of that, there's everything else you got to take into consideration: work, family, everything else. So that was probably a massive part of it that was spent the time. And again, very, very fortunate that we won Arbroath's first ever title the first season we were there. So within that was stood me in good stead, and I just felt that it was we'd get a chance at some stage. And fortunately enough, Montrose decided to take a punt on me, and so far it's worked out fine.
Aye, that's doing all right, isn't it?
Nah.
He probably did redefine the phrase "new manager bounce" as he came in, took them off the foot of the table. But for me, most importantly, he maintained it season after season. What do you think's the key to that, and not maybe doing a Barry Robson where you have a very good end to the season and it doesn't carry on?
I think the key for us has certainly been, apart from anything else, you need to have good people around you. I've got a chairman and I've got a board of directors, and we're now friends. Ultimately, at some stage they're going to have to sack me, or it might hopefully not come to that. But we now have an unbelievable relationship with John and the other directors, Michael, Peter, all the ones that are there. There's too many of them to mention, but it's a fabulous relationship with them, and I've got great staff. You're only as good as the staff around you, and probably one of my best signings ever was making Ross my assistant manager, because without Ross we wouldn't be where we're at. There's no question that. I fully believe that you need good people around you, and we've managed to entwine that with bringing Sean Dillon into the club as a player coach, which was it's just been an unbelievable. Probably our best signing as a player has been Sean. There's no question of that. And we've got Yano in at the club coaching as well, with now Davy Larter. And then again, we keep trying to say how professional we'll be for us. Our medical staff's outstanding as well. We've got Gemma, who's isn't as hands-on and then Scotty's the hands-on physio. He's there Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Gemma just oversees things, and then we've got Chris Simpson working with the strength and conditioning, and he's outstanding at what he does. So for me, it's if you surround yourself with good people, it makes your job a bit easier. And then you've just got to try and get the balance right with the squad. We don't overhaul the squad. I think there's only one season we've not been in the playoffs in 6 seasons, so there's no hell of a lot wrong, Charlie, with it. So there's no point in just making changes for the sake of them. Always trying, if we are making changes, that somebody that's coming in needs to bring something to it, and you're hoping are better than what you have, or they certainly have in addition to the squad. And again, we're trying to make sure that we do our due diligence, and that their character's got to be right as well, and their work ethic as well when they do come to the club. So we're big on that, and it seems to work at the moment. There's no doubt about that. Ultimately, we're at a stage where we can't compete with all the part-time clubs when it comes down to money, and that's and we want to safeguard the club, because ultimately the club's going to be here a long time after Stewart Petrie and his coaching staff and the players leave the club. We want to make sure that when it does come to that the club's in a better footing than what it was when we came in the door.
I'm going to tell the Celtic board about not overhauling the squad then year after year, because it's a long one if that's the case.
It's worked for us. I get it. Some clubs it works for. For us, the continuity has been massive, because it keeps that camaraderie within the boys, and it's a massive part of it at our level. There's no doubt about that. Boys' nights out, togetherness that they have, and we're trying to make a big thing of that as well. And I think you need to utilise your squad. So rather than maybe have a strong starting 11 or a 12, we feel we've got 17, 18 there that can all start the games. I guess the only downside of that is you'll have people unhappy that they're not starting games, but that's part and parcel of it, and we manage that as best we can. But we put a massive emphasis on subs. Subs are key. When the games are close, if your subs come on and do well, you'll get sun out of the game. If they don't do well, you may well lose the game. So it's a massive part of it for us is we're subs, and you'll notice how well we use subs and when we use them early in games.
I'm very interested, of course, in the title winning season. Talk to me about that, but I'm quite curious about when you believed that it's on, absolutely the race, but then when did you actually feel the pressure that it was on?
I think we lost, my memory's not great, but I'm sure we lost 6-2 to Peterhead. And that was round about January time. It had been round about the end of the second quarter. We lost, I'm sure it was 6-2. We got hammered at home, Peterhead. And you're thinking, okay, yeah, maybe it's not going to be, but because we were doing well. We're up in the top 2 or 3 at that stage, and then we got a tanking off them. And then we went up to Peterhead and we beat them away from home, which we hadn't done. And I just felt that, and that was in the third quarter, that was a turning point. I felt when I went up there and we showed we could compete, we showed we could beat them. And then going into the last quarter, the guys were outstanding. I think we lost once. I think it was Clyde that beat us. But I think we won 7 and drew 1. It was remarkable. It was like 22 points in the final quarter. And fair play to Jim and Peterhead. They kept winning as well. We went down to Stenhousemuir and we won at Stenhousemuir. Second last game, we thought that's it. But again, Peterhead won late on, so it went to the last game of the season and we just had to get a draw. And then, typical of us, we didn't want to do anything easy, so we go a goal behind at half time to Shane Sutherland free kick against Elgin. But fortunately enough, we gathered ourselves at half time and we just kept playing, and we got our break with Jamie Redmond's goal, and then it became a very special day.
You speak a lot about board members and your coaches and just surrounding yourself with good people in general. Do you think sometimes people lose track of wanting to move up the ranks as a manager, wanting to go from division to division, but actually do you feel maybe a sense of you just feel very at home at Montrose and that's what has kept you there for so long?
Yeah, we'll call it home now. Yeah, no doubt about that. I've got a special bond now with the club, and to be part of a championship winning team with the rest of the staff. It's great because you see, we've only been in there. We're only just walking through the door, and as I say, we're just visiting the club for a period of time. But when you see it on the faces of the directors that have been there for 30, 40 years, people behind the scenes 30, 40 years, fans that have been there 30, 40 years and beyond, and you can be part of giving them a day like we gave them, is more for me than anything else, because it's about these clubs, and they're all special. The clubs I've been at, fortunate enough, when you see the people that worked at Arbroath when I was there, the directors at Forfar and fans, and this is a life. So for us to give them something to cheer like we did, and give them the day we did, was worth more than anything else. That's for sure, and it brought a lot of joy to the town, and hopefully we can continue to do that. And there's still some other good days ahead.
Right, well, I won't keep you too much longer in case you get a wee urgent phone call saying that Warren Shanklin's on the line or something. But I just want to ask then, in a year's time, if we fast forward, what to you will have been a good job for you? As in, the work you've done, what will be classed as a good job in about a year's time for you?
In a year's time, I guess if it's a great job, we'll be sitting in the championship somewhere, and we've managed to sneak in the playoffs somehow and get up. But a good job, I think, if I was speaking to you here this time next year, and we are sitting in the same position, we'll have done a really good job. To be sitting still in the playoffs, going into the last, 15, 16 games of the season, and to have your shot at it, would be a really good job, because as I keep saying, it gets harder and harder year on year to compete, and we're managing to do that. But yeah, if we're in and around this position next year, that'll be a good job. If we're for some bizarre reason we're up a league, who knows? Then it'll be a great job.
Right, well, I'll keep my Twitter notifications on the Montrose page then, just in case there's any deals you've not informed us of. But Stuart, thanks very much for your time. It's been greatly appreciated that I've finally cracked the cinch League One. That's a league up as well. We were in the lower episode, now we're at League One. So thanks very much, mate.
No, not at all.
Really
Pleasure.
appreciate it.